In episode 7, they pretend to be lovers as part of this scheme. We watch them acting out this fantasy that a lot of fans have had about them.
I think the thing that's so fun about this episode is so much of Deborah and Ava's real, true relationship is the fabric on which the quote-unquote lie is built on. It's the real stuff that fans of the show have watched and seen for 5 seasons. We knew it would be a very comedic premise, and then with their performances, just knocked it out of the park. It was just such a highlight of the show.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Obsess the Podcast. I'm Kevin Fallon, here to guide you through all the TV shows, movies, and pop culture nonsense that we think is unmissable. And obviously, right now, for me, that is the final seasons of 2 of the greatest comedy series that we've ever had, Hacks and The Comeback. The Comeback just aired its series finale, and while I'm so sad to see it go, I'm so happy for what we had, which is this perfect treasure trove of comedy masterfulness from Lisa Kudrow. The show was so good. The ending was pitch perfect. I remember back in, 2013, I was interviewing Lisa Kudrow about her series Web Therapy. It was one of my first big lunch interviews. She's Lisa Kudrow's from Friends. She was so nice and so gracious. And I remember as a fan of The Comeback, I finished the lunch being like, I would be remiss if I didn't ask, will there be another season? And this was way before they even announced a season 2. And she looked at me and just generally asked, do you think we should do it? As if I myself was about to greenlight this season. She's like, do you think we should do it? Will people watch it? And of course I was just like, yeah, The Comeback is perfect. And since then, there's been a season 2, and now 10 years later, season 3. I'm going to miss it so much. And now to Hacks. And specifically episode 7, Montecito, where we see Jean Smart's Deborah and Hannah Einbinder's Ava do the thing that we've always wanted them to do, kiss. Of course, it's way more complicated than that, which is why I am so happy that our guest for today's episode is the Hacks co-creator, co-writer, co-showrunner, co-Emmy winner, Jen Statsky. She's going to unpack the final season of the show, casting Jean Smart as Deborah Vance, and of course, dive so deep into this episode that everyone is talking about. So without further ado, here is my interview with Jen Statsky. Hey Jen, how are you?
Hey, Kevin, I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I get to do my favorite thing, which is talk all about Hacks. So thanks for doing this.
Gosh. Well, very happy to be here to talk all things Hacks.
So I guess to begin, just please tell all of our listeners exactly what happens in the final moments of the series.
Okay, great. So it opens on.
Obviously, I'm kidding.
That would be good if I was just tired and caught off guard and it worked and I fully gave the entire series finale to you.
Yes.
I would have some. I think some people would be really angry at me. So I'm glad that I'm still with it enough to not do that.
I do want to promise everyone watching and listening that we are only going to be talking about episodes that have already aired. So don't feel like you're going to be spoiled. Just feel like you're going to get all the inside scoop on this show we all love. So to really begin with, I imagine for you being a creator, producer, writer, wearing all of the hats on the show, it must be a pretty wild experience right now with the episodes winding down and the sort of finale and the response to that looming in the distance. What is this experience like for you right now?
Yeah, it is crazy. It's, we've worked on this show since 2019 is when we pitched it. But even before that, we came up with the idea in 2015. And then as Paul Lucci and I were working on different things, we were constantly talking about it. So this has been more than a decade of my life that this show has been. And so to now be at this stage where it's coming to an end and as we record this right now, there's 5 more episodes to air ever. It's really wild. And I think it's hard I've found that it's hard to emotionally take in. I think my brain is still thinking, oh yeah, and then you'll start the writer's room in a few days. I don't think I've processed it yet.
It's one of those weird things I imagine too, where there's a series of goodbyes that happened over the
Mhm.
course of like a year because you stopped shooting. Well, first you stopped production, like pre-production, then you stopped shooting, and then the awards shows start happening, and then eventually those are going to stop. So it's like a
I
weird,
know.
very long, protracted farewell to something.
I know, it's really yeah, it's wild. It's like we're so lucky in that we've been on this schedule where we say bye, but then it's not really bye because we see everybody at the next stage. But yeah, that's been a strange part of this final season is that you end the writers' room and you say goodbye to your writers and you're like, wow, this is truly the end. And then same thing, you wrap production and you do that. And we on this show we wrapped production, like, 4 different times because we wrapped in LA, then we went to Vegas, we wrapped in Vegas, and then we went to Paris and had a very small crew there and wrapped. So it was interesting. It was a really drawn out goodbye process, and yet I still don't think I've emotionally, taken it in.
Was Paris with that small crew? Was that your final shooting wrap?
Yeah, that was our
Oh,
final
that must have been
final
really kind of special to be there with just that insert
It
group of
was. It
people.
was really special. It was really emotional. But it was emotional, the whole thing. It started being emotional so many points during the season. Like, I'll always remember in episode 2 when we shot Ava's birthday party,
Hmm.
and Jesse McCartney performs. And like Hannah is crying as Ava, but Hannah's also crying as Hannah. And like it was so emotional. And like I remember like when we wrapped that day, Hannah like just said something in the crew about how much she loves everyone and how important the show has been and like felt like a real birthday celebration party for Hannah and just for all of us being together, like loving each other and realizing how very special this experience has been.
And I mean, like, even just watching the episode, when you find out that Deborah had planned this party, like, my heart exploded into like 500 pieces. And then Jesse McCartney shows up, and it's just like, oh my God, it's Jesse McCartney. Like, I had the same just sort of like
Yeah.
shaking teenage experience that Hannah has, or Ava has.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really sweet, and I think it's, like, especially sweet because you know how far Deborah's come, like, we know the version of Deborah that we meet in the pilot and what this relationship between the 2 women has brought out in her, so I think it's not just it would be sweet for anyone to plan a surprise birthday party with all of someone's favorite things and fly someone in, but for Deborah to do it for Ava after they've been through so much, I think really you feel it.
Yeah. And this stretch of episodes and the way that they're being received by people who've been watching the series, is this where you and your partners in crime, Lucia and Paul, imagined the show going when you first started out doing this?
Yeah, I mean, we really, like, planned this, like, very much so we knew where it would go season 5, and so it was always very much about this difficult, somewhat toxic relationship between these 2 women who were very similar in some ways and also very different in other ways, generationally and ideologically and such, and so for us, it was we always wanted it to be this long journey of this relationship, this complicated relationship that had many ebbs and flows. There were moments when they were really on the same page, and then huge moments of betrayal or lies and things that would force them apart. And so this was always the plan that you would get to a final season, and this would be the culmination of a very deep, very intricate relationship where in the end, while of course not everything is perfect, it's never going to always be perfect, but these 2 have really done some work to forge the bond that they now have.
Hmm. And I love when things are ending to look back at the beginning. And I'm curious when the show premiered and then started getting great notices, and Jean started getting all these profiles written about her. I think I wrote one called the Jean Smartassance is here, like playing Renaissance.
Mhm, mhm.
And that was happening. And then you guys started winning Emmys and all these awards. What was that like for the three of you to handle that when this was first starting? The three of you being you, Lucia, and Paul.
Yeah, I mean, it was really wild. When you get a show, first of all, you feel so lucky for the opportunity to like, oh my gosh, this original idea we had, they're gonna give us money to go and make it. And then when a show comes out, I think we were very aware of how much of a crapshoot it is, how much it's like, well, is this gonna hit? Is this gonna hit the zeitgeist? Are people gonna watch? We all know so many shows where like, oh, this is an amazing show. No one's talking about it. Or the alt version, which is, oh, this show came out and they think they know how to portray a stand-up comedian and it's garbage.
Right.
We were very worried about the response from like comics themselves. And so for it to have been received the way it was season 1 is just such a blessing, and we feel so lucky because word of mouth really helped the show. Like, it really got it out there. It wasn't a show based on IP. It didn't have a name that, Gene Smart was having such a moment, but it's not like we
Mhm.
had this incredible blockbuster movie star, so it was really like the people who gravitated towards it first, yourself included, who like watched it, got out the word, like we're really indebted to everybody because it needed that kind of groundswell of support, I think. But it was such a it was almost like it is now hard to take in. It was hard to take in that first season because it was like, "Oh my gosh, like, people are watching and they're seeing what we'd hoped they'd see."
Yeah. I remember watching the first few episodes and then talking to Gene about them and really thinking about how much of a gamble it was to cast a real actor like Gene instead of doing something like a Kathy Griffin, like an actual
Mhm,
stand-up in the
mhm.
role. I was
Yeah.
wondering, like, what sort of discussions or thoughts you had about that going in.
Yeah, we talked about that a lot. And for us, there was always the goal that the show would be, of course, funny first, be a comedy, make people laugh, but we knew that tonally what we wanted to do was really strike a balance between hard funny, but then deep emotional moments and have these characters feel really real. And so when we got to talking about it, it felt like for us, someone who could play those dramatic moments, someone who could be so grounded and lived in a character that would make you feel like, oh my God, this is a real person that I'm really feeling for, became really important. And, what Jean has is this gift. She's so funny. She's so deeply funny. Everyone knew that for her years of work on Designing Women or Samantha Who or the Brady Bunch movie. And then she's also such a crazy talented dramatic actor. And we knew she was so funny, obviously, and honestly, it's just she's such a good actor that it is so hard to play a stand-up believably, and over the years, so many people have complimented Jean about how real she feels, and I just think that's because there is no part on planet Earth Jean Smart couldn't play. She
Yeah.
could make you believe she's anything, she's just that good. And so for us, it we knew that tonally she was the tip of the top of the mountain, the perfect example of what we wanted the show to be. This dual, both so funny and so like heart-wrenching and real and dramatic.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you brought up Designing Women because somehow Designing Women has been brought up around 8 or 9 times on this podcast since we started it in January.
Great, I
It's
love that. It's honestly like, and I watched Designing Women as a kid, I remember, and then also rewatched it as we cast Jean and stuff, and, like, it really holds up. Like, there from the get-go, it's one of those shows that from episode 1, they knew what it was, they knew what they had in the cast, and it is just like they're off to the races. It's really an excellent show. I think it should come up every episode of this
I know.
podcast.
I'm off book in all those speeches, so I could probably just do one where I'm just monologuing for the whole 30 minutes.
Yes, yeah, the night the lights went on in Georgia, that one?
Yep, yep, in
Yep.
Georgia. It's the barking the last syllable.
Yeah, yeah, perfect.
So one of the great things that happened in the first few episodes of the last season is that we had very quickly one of the like for fans a we're so back moment where like the comedy was so good. We're like, oh yes, we're off to the races.
Mhm.
And for me, it was when Gene was singing that Mexican song, and you have Ava like miming tipping the hat, and
Yeah,
but Gene as Deborah is actually doing a great job at singing the song while dressed in that goofy costume.
yeah, yeah, we early on, as we were breaking that episode, we're talking about how funny it would be for Deborah to really earnestly try to EGOT And the loophole of this category we just knew was a good moment, would provide a good moment for Deborah to showcase her singing skills.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, in my opinion, really great special treats for fans in the run of episodes that we're at right now. I know since the show started, a lot of people that at least who I follow on social media, have been sort of marveling at, like, oh, wait, the actor who plays Jimmy has kind of a banging body. Obviously, Paul, who's a co-creator on the show, and we get a special gift in episode 6. You get to see the whole body.
Episode 6, Jimmy and Kayla run into some trouble at a hotel. Yeah, they that is true. That is true. I love that moment because it's so, like you're saying, hopefully feels full circle for fans of the show. Because as you remember, in season 1, in the finale, Kayla books Jimmy and herself into the honeymoon suite at a hotel. And Jimmy is very upset about this, very not okay with this, thinks it's extremely inappropriate. And so there's something so sweet to me about the fact that then 5 seasons later, they are partners, and Jimmy is like, "Yeah, okay, we can do a hotel with 2 beds next to each other." But yeah, unfortunately, bed bugs, and yeah, you see more of Jimmy than Jimmy would want you to, because Jimmy is a very modest, appropriate man.
Which, if I looked like Jimmy, I would be walking around naked the entire time. So,
I know, he looks good. He looks good. I worry that Jimmy, he has so much work stress, so much anxiety from these demanding clients. I think a lot of his workout is just I think his muscles are tense and flexed 24 hours a day.
yeah. Well, and I also love the idea that, Paul is a creator in the show, a writer on the show, and he gave himself a nude scene.
Well, to be fair, Paul, we always say this, Paul is the most, he'll see like he's the most like, "Yeah, just cut me, just cut me, just cut me. We don't need it. We don't need Jimmy." And we're like, "Hey, we're not cutting." So he was definitely like, definitely it wasn't him wanting to do that. It was certainly, it's always us being like, "We need more Jimmy and Kayla."
Yeah.
Paul's he's very never trying to push his own appearance in the show, which again, like you're saying, if I looked like Paul and I was I'd be like, put me in.
Yeah. Just have a whole skinny dipping episode.
Mm-hmm.
So another gift that you guys give to fans, I think, short of a Deborah and Ava sex scene or them like riding off into the sunset happily ever after together as a romantic lesbian couple, in Montecito episode 7, you pretty much give these people who have been shipping for a sort of romance between Ava and Deborah as close to a wish fulfillment as there probably would ever get in this episode, where they pretend to be lovers as part of this scheme for Deborah to get this suit from one of her rivals,
Yes.
who happens to be a lesbian.
Yes.
So we watch them acting out this fantasy that a lot of fans have had about them.
Yes, exactly. We knew that we had talked about this episode for a while, and then it sort of perfectly dovetailed with, oh, she would need this thing for her Madison Square Garden show. She would be very focused on having the perfect outfit for her return to the stage. And I think the thing that's so fun about this episode is so much of Deborah and Ava's real true relationship is the fabric on which the quote unquote lie is built on. It's all the stuff that gets brought up in the fights, like whether it's you don't like, I've sued you, or I've never hit you, or all like Ava talking about how they met. Like, it's the real stuff that fans of the show have watched and seen for 5 seasons. So we knew it would be a very comedic premise, but we also wanted to use like the real true life stuff of the show that had been built up into that point. And then Cherry Jones and Leslie Bibb just knocked it out of the park
Oh my gosh,
with their
yes.
performances. And we were like, that was probably, we were 5 days in Malibu shooting that whole episode. And it's rare that we shoot an episode kind of all in one location, but pretty much almost all of that episode is there. And it was just such a highlight of the show. It was such a good vibe. Cherry and Leslie, everybody brought such a good vibe. Everybody was just really, really happy.
Yeah, it was almost like a Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf kind of thing happening.
Exactly.
When fans started doing that word shipping between Ava and Deborah, how did you feel about that when that started bubbling up?
I mean, it's always like whenever you're making something, there's this really delicate balance between how much criticism or fandom, praise, any of that you let in. Because I think for me, there's just this huge fear that once you start letting, once you start letting that in, does it affect organically what you'd always planned for the show?
Hmm.
And the truth is Paul Lucci and I have known where this show was going since the beginning. We've arced out what Ava and Deborah's relationship is. We know what it is. We, are very intentional in that. And so, you never wa of course, we are so grateful that people watch the show and have these strong feelings and have things they wanna see um, but that, you have to be careful because you can't. I think that at the end of the day, if you start writing a show towards people's expectations or hearing like, "Oh, they want us to do more of this, so we should do more of that," that it just becomes something else. Like,
Yeah.
it's sort of, like, it just taints it in a way that I just don't think anyone actually at the end of the day wants.
And speaking of expectations, I've seen the finale. I've seen the last episodes, and Gene said something in an interview ahead of this final season that I really agreed with because it sort of echoed my journey um, watching those final episodes because they do go in a direction that are really unexpected. And she said that it was nothing that she remotely ever imagined. But then she realized, no, it'll work because they're writing it and they're amazing. And so I went, okay. And then you go along, then she went along with it and realized, of course, it's a brilliant way to end the series. But I'm curious if you can talk about how, without spoiling things,
Mhm.
how you think people might feel given that experience that they might go on, or that journey they might go on of being like, oh, this is a direction I never thought we would take. Where are we going with
Mhm.
this? Before coming around to the, at least in my opinion, perfect ending to the series.
Thank you, thank you. I think, without wanting to spoil anything or even point anyone in any direction, I hope that when people finish the series, they feel that it speaks to what we think the entire point of the show has been about this very special relationship between creative partners and honestly friends and what the value of making your friends laugh and just what that means to the experience of life, and I hope people look at the ending and go, "Oh, this is very Hacks. This is
Hmm.
very what the tone of the show has been all along." And, it's funny, Jean San and I don't think I think Jean has said this in interviews, so I'm not exposing her, but I think Jean really for a while held on to the idea that the show would end partly with her and Marty getting married.
Oh,
Jean
right.
as much as there are massive Ava Deborah shippers, Jean is kind of the biggest Marty Deborah shipper, so I think, there was there was part of it that maybe she thought a little bit of that was coming, but, the truth is and the beautiful thing about Jean and Hannah is for the entire run of this series, they trusted us very much in terms of they didn't ask to hear their arcs before the season started. They didn't, wanna weigh in about things they were doing or say, "No, we wanna do" they got the scripts as they came, they read them, and they were so trusting in it. And so I feel very grateful that at the end of the day, Jean that trust paid off to the very end, it sounds like from what she
Hmm.
was saying.
Yeah, and we're talking about winding down to a series finale, and you've worked on some shows that have been some of the most memorable series finales that at least
Yeah.
I've watched. Shows like Broad City and The Good Place. I'm curious, especially with The Good Place, with some years of remove from that, which one day you will have from this Hacks finale. How are you feeling about the way a show like that ended? A show like The Good Place ended.
I feel really proud of the way we ended that show. I mean, I look back and I'm happy that I don't have any regrets about it, and I think the way Mike and we all did it was really perfect. That show what I think I'm also really proud of with that show, and this was obviously Mike Schur's decision, but that show was incredibly ambitious. That Good Place was a
Yeah.
show where There were huge story moves, huge sci-fi world building things in a 22 minutes network sitcom, and it's I think it is maybe the most ambitious network sitcom I've ever seen, perhaps definitely the most ambitious that I've ever worked on.
Yeah.
And we always pushed ourselves to go like, "Well, let's just get to it sooner. Let's get to that plot point sooner." And, like, it's let's not keep everyone always guessing, and so let's just do it sooner. And in doing that, we burned through story faster than a typical show where maybe you spin your wheels for some episodes. And so I feel really proud that Mike and the writers and I, like, all pushed ourselves to do that, and then that show ended after 4 seasons because we told the complete story we wanted to tell, whereas it would've been really nice to make it go for 5 more seasons and just
Right.
kinda be, like, not changing that much, but that's just not there was real integrity to the storytelling in that, which I really am proud of, and I think we tried to do the very same thing here, which is that for my personal life, I would like Hacks to go on for, 15 more seasons because I
Yeah.
love making the show, I love the people I work with, I love the having a show on the air that people watch, and yet the storytelling, like, staying true to what it is, it needed to end at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to revisit the Hacks finale the same way that I do The Good Place and Broad City. Like, it's definitely one of those that I will go back and watch and obviously cry,
Oh, thank
while
you.
watching.
Thank you.
I have to let you go, but I do have one last question. It's a selfish one for me. I just need your advice.
Sure.
So as a fellow TV comedy lover,
Okay.
how do you suggest people like me, and I know you have your allegiances in this debate, but how do we weather this Emmy showdown between Jean Smart and Lisa Kudrow for The Comeback? I've never felt more of a Sophie's choice in my
Oh
life.
my gosh, I know this is a real, I can tell this is brewing. This is gonna be the topic of the 2026 Emmys. I think we just lean into the gratitude that we're alive in a time where we got to see both Jean Smart and Lisa Kudrow perform these characters. It's a real, it's a joy. It's incredible. So I'm just happy both performances are exist.
It's truly an embarrassment of riches. It's so much fun to watch these two just epic, epic comedy performances.
Yes, yes.
Awesome. Well, listen, Jen, this has been so much fun for me, especially as a fan of the show, to get to pick your brain about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching and supporting it, and yeah, hope hope when everyone sees, they love it.
I'm sure they will. All right, take
Cool.
care.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Jen. I could chat with you about hacks forever. And of course, we want to hear from you. What's your favorite episode of Hacks? And why is it Montecito? Did it have you gagged like I did? Let us know. We want to hear your comments. And as always, subscribe to us on YouTube at the Obsessed channel. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like me, follow me on Substack at obsessed.substack.com. Thank you to our producer, Rachel Passer, and we'll see you next time.